Hello everyone and welcome back to another one of my uniform videos. Today I thought we'd go ahead and take a look at my hat collection as part of my uniforms, because I've been able to acquire the predecessor to this hat. This of course is probably the one hat that gets the most attention. A lot of people are confused as to why Sweden would wear a tricorn during the approximate time of World War I. But now I've got the predecessor and I've got the helmets that replaced it, so we can go ahead and take a look at the lineage throughout that. However, I think we'll start by just going back over the 1910 uniform tricorn to start off with. There's a few new things that I haven't shown in previous videos, and then there's also the basic, and I thought we'd go over everything so that everyone watching this, even if you haven't watched my old videos, everyone will be on the same page. So for the 1910 uniform, Sweden introduced the new hat, which was this tricorn. Now I should say here that this one is a replica. This is not an original one, and there's two reasons for that really. First and foremost, it's really hard to find originals in my head size, since I've got rather a large head at 60 centimeters. And then there's also the fact that usually I go outside sometimes to film with these uniforms, and it would be a tragedy if I somehow broke or damaged an original while out filming. So it's better than to have this replica. It would have been made from felt, and it would have been two different colors, as we can see here, grey and blue. This replica is a little bit stiffer than the original would have been, and also to the dismay of the soldier, as it had a tendency to deform in rain. So they weren't too much of a fan of it. As we go through the components here, we've just gone through it's made of felt, and we got the two colors. Next up we got the plume. This one would only have been it would have only been worn for parade use. So when in the field it would have been detached. I actually have an original one. So this right here, a little bit dirty, the original one, and this is the replica I had made. So really similar in that sense. It was a well-made replica, and I'm really pleased with it. With that, as we go further along the hat here, we've got the standard army mark of the time, which is the 3 crowns. And below there we've got the company marking. As I've been looking for original hats, I see a lot of people get this wrong when they say sort of, oh, this is a 4th infantry hat. No, this is for the 4th company or whatever infantry would have used them. For this uniform, the infantry number would have been displayed on the shoulder, not on the hat, and the company would have been shown on the hat. And you could kind of devise this, because at the time each regiment had about 2 battalions, so you only ever see up to about 8 on this. You don't see, you know, infantry regiment 15 or anything like that. In some I see, but then it's the wrong type of number, and it's been like stitched on, and you might say 12, or, you know, to the mark sort of a regiment, but that would be wrong. Secondly, I have mentioned it in other videos, but I didn't have it with me, so I couldn't show you. But it does have a chin strap. Not greatest way to show you this, but it's attached on the inside there. Let's see if I can put it. So you have one of these little fellas, and then we just, let's see if I can do this with one hand, 2 hands there. So you attach it on one side, and you attach it on the other. I actually have the original chin strap as well. It's kind of weird. I have the plume and the chin strap but no hat to go with it. And that's how that would look. So it would keep your hat on during a little bit of stormy weather. And that's about it. Let's go ahead and take a look then at the hat that this replaced. A little bit of a side note here, because I do get a lot of comments about how strange it is that Sweden wore a tricorn hat, but I just want to show you like what some of the other nations at the time were wearing at the start of World War I. This one with a bloody battering ram on it. Now currently I've got the helmet cover on, so you don't see how fancy it is, but you do see how fancy this one is, with brass decals and also, and this one has a table on top of it. So in terms of silly hats, I think Sweden came off fairly okay, right? Side notes aside, let's go ahead then finally and take a look at this hat. So this is the style of hat that Sweden would have worn before the tricorn, and actually wore at the same time as the tricorn as well. This, I should say, is the later version. So this is from the 1900s, you can tell because of the ventilation hole right here, and the fact when we turn it over we've got a waterproof lining here at the head. But this is basically the model 1865-99 hat. The 1865 would have been shorter, so it wouldn't have been as high, and the 99 version would have been a little bit fancier, I might say. And then in the 1900s they made these that were a bit simpler, but in style the three ones are very similar. So I think this one is appropriate to show in terms of sort of what came before the 1910 hat, to kind of show you that Sweden had this sort of cappy style hat just like everyone else. So just like the 1910, you have a company mark up here. In this case we've got the 6th company. The coloring behind, it's a little bit different depending on which one it is, because sometimes the coloring is split up by battalion, and sometimes it's split up by, I think, 3 companies and stuff like that, but we don't need to go into that. We just need to see the similarities then, that the company number is displayed on the hat, and then same for them. The regimental marking would have been on the shoulder, and then of course we need the army marking, so we've got a button right here. Let's see if it wants to autofocus on the hat instead of me, with the standard 3 crowns. We've got some piping around here, which makes a little bit of loop-de-loop in the back, and that's the hat. So I got this one because, similar to the replica I have of the 1910, I prefer not to wear the originals when I'm out filming videos or whatever. And also this is a small size. This is a 55, I'm a 60, so yeah, it does not fit in my head, but that might be just as well. So there we have that, the hat which was replaced, and with that I thought we'd go ahead and take a look at the hat then, or the helmets that replaced the 1910 hats. In 1914 the World War started, and Germany started off the war wearing this leather hat with fancy brass details and all. but the realities of war soon came creeping in, and the total devastation and so on prompted them to find better cover for their heads. So they went with a steel helmet inspired by old medieval helmets. This is an original German 1916 helmet. New cover, new helmet lining, I should say, not that cover. Helmet lining, and also the chin strap is new. The easiest way to tell, I'm just going to put down the helmet over here. The easiest way to tell that this is a 1916 is where the chin straps are attached to. So they wanted to conserve as much material as possible, so they figured we've got straps for the pickelhaube, why don't we use those straps for the helmet? So they made these lugs on the inside, and then they made so you can attach your the same chin strap as the pickelhaube had inside. Then later on they came with specific ones that were attached inside and so on. But that's the way you can kind of tell that. But that's not the story we're here for. Because just as much as the nations that were fighting the war realized they needed something more substantial on their head, so did the nations that weren't participating but were off to the sidelines. And obviously they were taking notes as well, as there was quite a rapid development in technology, and so during the war, so lessons were learned as well. And so in 1917 Sweden set out to make their own helmet designs, and those are the ones we're going to take a look at next here. Now, as I said, in 1917 Sweden started looking at different designs for helmets, looking at it's back in time, similar to what others did, but also looking at what the warring nations were deploying for their soldiers. And there went a load of different prototypes, but they kind of came up with two ones, which were the models 92 model. It's a little bit strange here because both the models, both these helmets are called Model 21 for as 1921, and we have the high dome and the low dome. The low dome set pretty a little bit uneven on the head, and the soldiers remarked that they felt that it was a little bit unstable, so they didn't like that one. So ultimately this was the one that they produced. The high dome was the one that they produced in a greater quantity. So this is the helmet that Sweden would have later worn. You can go into an entire video just about the different ways they sort of mark the helmets and whatnot, because the differentiation in between the helmets is this as a model 2118, and this is a model 182116. But it goes through, because this one wasn't designed in 1916. You can go into a lot about it, and that's not what I'm going to do today. But I wanted to show you the helmets that I had today, and sort of show you the transition then, if we take a look here at them. I'm just going to go so that we kind of get the transition here towards something more practical, although I think this one's more practical than this, but there we are. So there we are for the final bit here. Let's put all three of them next to each other. So we went from something pretty practical to something very fancy and nationalistic, to then again something even more practical, something that will actually protect your head. Still though a little bit with the plate marking here with the 3 crowns. But there we are. So I wanted to show you the sort of evolution here of headwear for the army. Obviously this is not all of it, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. And with that, I think I'll say, as I always say, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you guys for the next one. Bye.